All right, this podcast, I sit down with Gerry Lemire, and we talk about hunting, life, and the 3D course at Huntstock that he is designing and helping me build and run this year. There's a lot of cool stuff in this. Gerry's an old school guy. He's a meat hunter. He's killed some big deer as well, but he's just down to earth, a lot of fun to be around, and he's got a ton of knowledge on the 3D archery building courses. He's been doing it for years. As soon as I met him, we clicked, and I knew he would do a great job for hunt stalkers to provide a quality course out there. And I'm telling you, he made it challenging. He's going to make it fun. You know, he puts obstacles in the way, but he gives you the kill shot, as he likes to say. So we do a little bit of a sneak preview on what that course is going to look like. We talk about hunting in Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, and Vermont. And there's a lot of stuff in between, but I hope you guys enjoy this one. Here he is, Gerry Lemire. Well, we're back with another episode of the Hunt Suburbia podcast, and I'm sitting here with Gerry Lemire. I'm saying your last name right.
Lemire, right?
Lemire?
Lemire.
Okay, so I'm not saying it right.
Well, Lemire, a lot of people call me a lot of things.
Gerry Lemire.
Yeah.
Gerry and I have been getting to know each other last, month, a little bit more than a month here.
Yep.
As we're planning Huntstock. Gerry, for those who don't know, Gerry is designing the 3D archery course and building it and running it all weekend at Huntstock.
With a little help from some of my friends, too.
Yeah. Well, it's been
Alex
fun.
has been doing a good job, and you've been, helping out a lot, too. So it's a good time, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I hope everybody shows up to come and shoot the course. We're going to try to make it a little challenging if we can, and hopefully you'll have some fun. And I know we got a lot of other activities going on there also,
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, like learning, because that's something I'm not big into 3D archery. I haven't shot a ton of courses, and so that's out of my world. But you've been doing it for what? How many years?
Yeah, well, I started up there at Nipmunk Rod and Gun with Billy Donato, Frankie, his brother, Sammy, rest in peace. He was one of my mentors, and the grandson, Billy D. Jr., and they took me under their wing, brought me out to Pennsylvania and so forth. But with the 3Ds, they believe it or not, I ended up with an edge bow when I started back into bow hunting, and I probably went through at least a dozen arrows a week. I was shooting aluminums back then, just to, and it was a lot of fun, though. I had some good experiences with it, and I know some people aren't going to believe it's me because my beard was down to here as of last week, actually Saturday. But it is me. You can tell by my voice.
Yeah, you do look a lot different than when I first met you.
Yeah, 15 years they said I lost. That's good. I need to get as many years under my belt as I can.
You looked like Duck Dynasty before, and
yeah.
That real big beard.
Yeah, and it was definitely a challenge for them guys to cut it off. It took two of the barbers to do it, but we didn't want to stay there all night. And I don't think they did such a bad job.
So
and it's going to grow back. It's for my daughter's wedding is what it's for.
That's what he says.
In December,
I think it's for his girlfriend, sneakily. That's what I think. How many courses have you designed, Gerry, and how long? Like how long have you actually been doing?
Well, I was part of Bay State Arches years ago on the board of directors there. We had a lot of clubs were doing shoots. We used to have 2 every Sunday somewhere. And it was, I forget how many clubs in Bay State. But, Nipmunk, we've built quite a few courses out there. I mean, we usually try to make it interesting. And I know a lot of people have come to Nipmunk and have always said that, as far as the state of Massachusetts and the East Coast, that Nipmunk has put on some of the better courses. And we do have some good territory up there as far as the rock ledges and stuff, and people would be complaining that they ruined an arrow on the rock. And what I used to say at the registration is, we're not up there shooting at rocks, so if you miss the target, and that's the same thing with Huntstock, if there's some, we're going to give you the kill zones.
Yeah, so that's Gerry's thing is as he and I have been we're talking. He's Gerry, you're a professional, and he's asked, what do you want from this course? And I remain like I want Huntstock to be about this festival experience and the coming together of people. And I know 3D archery is important to a lot of people, and it's not my experience, which is why I'm really happy to have you along doing that. But in this first, we're keeping the course at 20 targets instead of 30, which a lot do. You're going to be out there a lot, less time. It might take, 2 hours? We're going to test it the weekend before. But
the thing is, too, is, the whole festival is basically so everybody can have fun and take in everything else. So we don't want to focus totally.
Yeah, we don't want you to be out all day on the course.
No, and we're also setting it up so you can do 10 targets, take a break if you like. There'll be no drinking, of course, until you're done the course. And that'll be taken care of. And then you can go do the other 10, or you can continue on and complete the whole thing.
Yep.
Either way.
Yeah, everybody should. If you want to shoot the course, get to the event as early as possible. Get it done if you want early in the morning. Look at the schedule we published and kind of plan when you want to shoot around the seminars you want to see and any of the other activities that we have on the schedule. But in talking with you about building a course, because I didn't know anything about it, Gerry says a lot. He wants to make it difficult. And as we're walking and we're planning out the course, he's like, "Oh, I see it. A nice V in a tree, or that rock is a good distance obstacle where it looks it's going to change your depth perception a little bit." I talk about that a little bit. You want it to be
my whole thing in this whole. I'm not a target shooter, I should say. I'm a hunter. I like hunting with my bow. So when I look at 3D courses, that's what I think we should be doing is practicing on the yardage. Yeah, we're going to let you use rangefinders, but if you really want to get in tune for getting yourself in shape for yardage purposes, you want to try to guesstimate the yardage that we have it at. And also with the obstruction, because, and that's what we talked about before. It's how many times, that deer will be hiding behind that. How ironic that he's right behind that pine tree.
Yeah.
Or that brush pile.
For 30 minutes.
Yeah. How can he know that that's being between you and him? But that's what, it's all about, and it's the same thing with the 3D. You're going to have that shot. You're going to have that 12, 14-point monster buck that's in between that V of the tree. You want to have that experience so you can harvest that deer, because, and my experience is that once he gets away from that V and off to the side, he's gone.
Might be the only shot you ever get.
He's gone, That's happened. It's ironic how they know that, and that's how they get big. They get big by not being stupid. By knowing, I've said that many a times. You're in their living room. You got to understand that. That's why I'm strictly scent. I'm a stickler on scent.
Yep.
I try to be as unscented throughout the hunting season. Whether or not I'm taking a shower to go to a wedding or I'm taking a shower to go hunting, my showers are all, and all my clothes are all scent-free throughout the year.
What do you scrub the beard in scent-free shampoo or what?
Yeah. Every morning.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's talk about the course a little more, and then we're going to get into some hunting stories and stuff too, and tactics. But so by Gerry's nature of wanting there to be a little bit of obstacles, wanting to be a realistic scenario, you're going to be facing a lot of realistic scenarios, and so there's going to be obstacles in the way. There might be overhanging branches, and you got to have one foot on the stake, right? And you might have to lean out to the left, or you might have to duck down a little bit, but you have to have one foot on the stake.
Yep.
For your shot to count. Obviously, it's all honor system. You're scoring yourself. But
we gotta give you the kill zone and up to the 8 ring. You get into the 5. After that, then you shouldn't be shooting an animal there anyway.
Yeah.
You want to be into the kill zone. We're gonna try to get a couple quartered away from us, and like I said, you might have to kneel down on some shots. You might have to move a little bit to the left, but you got to keep your foot on the stake. And if you want to use the rangefinders, like I said, that's fine. Then we're gonna also have the guys that want to do the top scores, and we're gonna give them some challenging shots also.
Yeah, so we're gonna have 3 stakes, right?
Right. One for the kids and the recurves.
Yep.
traditional shooters. And that's like, right now I'm guesstimating, I'm trying to stay within the 20-yard range, especially for the kids, because you want to make it interesting for the kids. And what I say to anybody, if you don't feel comfortable, it's all honor system. So if you don't feel comfortable standing at the stake and you want to, forget about your score or whatever, especially the kids, they can move up a little bit. I mean, the bow hunters and the Top Gun shooters, we're going to have 2 stakes, one each for one of them. And, hopefully they won't be moving up.
How about that? Do you think they're going to be surprised by that first target?
Yeah, that's very deceiving. That even shocked me.
Yeah, without giving it away.
No.
That's going to be a fun. I think people are going to talk about the first shot.
I think so, and it's amazing that it is the first shot, but that is, all 3 of us thought otherwise.
Yeah.
So
cold shot. Make sure you hit the range. Hopefully, we're going to have a range set up, practice range for people to be able to shoot. And yeah, man, it was a lot of fun going through that process with you.
Yeah, and Alex and the farm
helping cut the lanes and stuff.
Yeah,
here.
they're doing a real good job, and they're really into it.
Yep.
And it's nice to see them on board for sure.
Yeah, hopefully Huntstock brings a lot of new eyes on the farm too. They're going to be doing more events. They do a fall festival there every year, so they're going to have a fall fest in September, which is also before hunting season. So anybody who goes there falls in love with the farm.
How can you not?
Go back to the Fall Fest, and I'm sure I'll be at the Fall Fest, and you probably will go out to it too.
Whatever I can do to support them people.
They're awesome.
We don't have too many farms left around, and for these guys here to come forward and help out, I think it's a really good thing for everybody.
Yep.
And I know they're enjoying it.
Yep.
It's all new to everybody, and that's what it is. It's a whole new experience as far as that goes. So
yeah.
Hopefully all the T's and the I's. And
I'm hoping I can get, talking with Gretchen, Alex, he's a little bit, I think, public speaking averse. He doesn't really want to jump on the podcast. I think Gretchen said that she would. And
oh yeah.
Oh yeah. And so I really want to get Gretchen on before Huntstock. Hopefully you guys will see a podcast with her. Maybe some.
Yeah,
other
I never
folks
thought
from
I'd
the
be
farm.
sitting here either.
And we'll twist Alex's leg and get him on. He's a good shit, and I know he'd be great on the podcast too.
Yep.
All right, so 3D course. I guess we'll just do a couple final details on that. It's gonna be $25 to shoot 3D course. Remember that some of the profits will go to givetothose.org. We have sold 12 or 13 targets at $100 a piece for sponsors, and all of that money goes back to Give to Those.
Yeah, that's the thing too. Anybody that wants to sponsor a sign, we're gonna have the signs up. Your name of the business or whatever you want to put on at each shooting station.
Yep.
So if you want to contribute and put towards the cause, we'll make up a sign for you. Just let us know.
Totally. Yep. I think there's 7 or 8 of those left. So hit me up if you want to benefit Give to Those and have your business as part of the inaugural Huntstock 3D archery course.
Yeah.
Easton and Delta Mackenzie. Easton owns Delta Mackenzie. They came through in a big way, so they're sponsoring the course. We've got some great targets coming from them.
I never thought when we went up there to Vermont to see about buying them targets that would develop into talking with those guys and those guys to come forward for the whole. What was it, 16 targets they?
Yep. Something.
And, that's unheard
awesome.
of, I think.
Yep.
And they've always. Even Mackenzie, when I first dealt with them with the St. Jude's, they've always come through for me. Same with Chris at Reedy's Archery and. A lot of these other organizations and so forth. It's for a good cause, and it's only gonna make our lives better. I think.
Totally.
The more people we get on board to,
Yeah, and these sponsors, they a lot of the big national brands, their planning and their budget seasons and all that were already passed by the time they're starting now planning for 2023. right? So, it's been tough to get some of the bigger national brands to come out or be a part of it, or buy in a big way in this first year. We've still got plenty of awesome brands. Easton will be there. We're working on Hoyt. Hoyt's really close to coming. We've got an e-bike brand that's national. I mean, Woodman Arms, obviously. We've got a good array of sponsors, but 2023 it's going to be huge, because all of these brands, these big ones that are donating door prizes this year, said, you can count us in for 2023. We just got to get ahead of the budgeting process. But people, as I'm telling them, the vision of Huntstock, they're really excited about it. They're believing in it, and that's why Easton and Delta McKenzie, stepped up.
Yep.
Because they're seeing the vision, and
I saw your frustration out there, and when I stepped in, I never thought that, for one, it would be this difficult. I thought, having the experience and the contacts that I have throughout the leagues, that I would be able to either rent, borrow, beg, or steal the targets, and that didn't happen. And then I was like, wow, now I really stepped into it. Where am I going to find 20 targets,
So the peek behind the scenes for people is like, I wanted 3D Archery to be a part of Huntstock badly, but I don't have experience there, and I knew it was going to be really expensive to get targets in a first-year event. That's all really risky to invest in something like that, and especially when you don't know what you're doing. And I have 8 million things that are being juggled to make sure.
I'm surprised you're doing as well as you're doing.
I just didn't want to have to put 3D Archery on the plate too, especially not having experience there. So I needed somebody, and floated it around a bunch of places. And I get why some people didn't want to do it, and I also get, I have no idea. I went with the idea that maybe a club will rent them out for the weekend, or we can share revenues with somebody who wants to do it.
I guess one of the problems there is that a lot of the clubs, it starts way back when we had Bay State, for one. You had two separate clubs. We tried keeping one, down in the South Shore and one up in the north or east or whatever.
Try not to compete with each other too much.
Exactly. So you could draw in the different people, like Nipmunk. For some reason, we'd end up with, I used to have 4 parking attendants out there, and guys that we used to split them up into 10 target loops. So I had 3 check-in stations, basically, because there was, we'd have 400, 500 shooters.
Yeah.
And we made some good money from that, back then. And so I can see where a club wouldn't want to, give or allow an organization like this, for instance, that might be taken away from a fellow club that might be having a shoot on the same day.
Mm-hmm.
So I can understand that. So they're trying to...
I don't even think there is another shoot.
No, there probably isn't.
Actually, it's
but
IBO Worlds that weekend.
Yeah. But I think it's just in general, you know what I mean, for them, as far as no, we don't lease out our targets, or no, we don't rent them out or anything.
But it turned into, for me, it's a blessing, because with everything that I do in life too, if I don't know, if I can't get an expert to do it, if I have an idea and I wanted to be a part of whatever or something, and someone's not buying into it, then I always tell myself, then I just need to figure out how to do it myself, because then it becomes a learning process too. Yeah. Then I become more well-rounded.
I think we're all learning here.
You've taught me now, basically.
We're all. We've been walking that course, and we've been up there a few times now, and we've discussed different aspects of it. And like you say, it's a learning experience, but yet we're all learning off of each other, and we want to make it an interesting shoot, and hopefully everybody will be talking about Huntstock, rather. What am I saying?
That's a comment everybody's saying that is because the Instagram.
It's a festival, yeah.
Yeah, I had to. Huntstock was taken on Instagram, so I had to make Huntstock Fest.
Yeah.
As the handle there. So a lot of people are calling it Hunt Fest.
Yeah, but like you say, you got a good farm with the base, and good bunch of people that are working on things, and we're also. I myself personally, I've got a venture up in Vermont that we're going to have some hunt giveaways for.
Let's talk about that too.
It's going to be a personal one-on-one, basically, with myself and whoever wins the hunt. They can bring up to 2 people with them.
Yeah. So Jerry's donating 2 hunts and we'll tell the story about it. It's pretty cool. But Jerry's got a bunch of private land in Vermont now that he
Yeah, I
is
met
prepping
the
and
doctor.
scouting and.
I got over 400 acres, and I got the caretaker.
And don't think like Vermont as in like the way I always talk about it, small bucks all over the place. There's really good when you got private land in Vermont.
Well, I'll tell you, the first day I hunted last winter with my brother had a monster, and I mean and as far as we know, he's still there. We haven't seen him yet, but I know he was chasing a doe, and my brother. He knows his deer pretty good, and
Yeah.
this deer, he shot at him 3 times with his 30-30. My Uncle Oscar's gun, unfortunately, and, that thing's never missed anything. I think it just, knowing my brother, he probably panicked on what he saw and probably shot up in the air somewhere, just because he said it was a monster. And I've seen some prints around, and nobody's been hunting this land. I stepped into it with this doctor. He actually basically, the camp he bought in 2015, and when I met him up there, he had forgot he even owned it.
This is just incredible.
Yeah,
and he said, Jerry, do what you want with it. I don't want people to use the land.
He wants to use the land. They made me a swimming hole there, 8 feet deep. And it's all clay, and they actually asked me yesterday. He called me up. You want me to make it bigger? and it's a 3-bedroom camp, and it's a rough camp. Right now, I'm working on the water situation in the shower, but we'll have that all situated. And, I've got the experience from Pennsylvania. I've been hunting there for 40 years. And I had up in Mount Union. I used to go out to Mount Union. But up in Deshore, Pennsylvania, in Bradford County. And we shot some real nice deer out of there. But that was all state land.
Yep.
And it was 368 acres that nobody during bow season basically hunted. It was a little bit of a climb to get up there, but I knew how to do it. And we hunted that for a good many years. But now the state, they kind of gave up all the food plots that they were because you don't get that much activity up there. So with that and a few other situations, I pulled out of Pennsylvania, especially with the doctor. And I can't, this guy basically gave me the run of his land. And not only that, is I've got his neighbor who, the mechanic Walt, he's 84 years old, and he told me this guy, his neighbor, has got like 4,000 acres. And if I want to hunt that 4,000 acres, all I got to do is tell him that Walt sent me. But right now, that's going to be a big chunk to try to accomplish, so I'm trying to stay focused on the 400 acres. And it's all going to be ATV access, so if anybody has the difficulties as far as getting around, we'll be able to bring you right to the stand if you want.
And that's another experience you have, too, is with stand safety and preventing falls.
Tree stand safety is one of my biggest things. Everybody that's there is going to have a safety harness.
Yep.
I have hundreds of them. And when
you teach courses on it?
Yeah, I teach the course. I mean, I haven't been doing it because I'm getting a little older now, but I have been out there to the Bow Festival in Pennsylvania. They love me out there. I teach the tree stand safety. And also I've done it with the elusive whitetail that a lot of people have participated with that. We've done, from soup to nuts as far as, setting people up in the tree stand. I used to actually get the deer from Southwick Zoo, and we used to have a live shot on scenario with a 3D target, and then I placed the deer for a blood trail, and then we do from, processing and making burger out of it or whatever we got to do, And it's a lot. I mean, that was an experience in itself. I really loved that, working with that, the education part of it, and I think it's very important. And I was a certified bow instructor for Massachusetts, but kind of got away from that due to the problem with the.
Let's go back to your. Let's go back to your the hunts that you're donating.
Okay.
Right. So you're starting this new business. You're going to take people out on the private land, and it's you're gonna do bow, but also probably rifle later on.
Rifle,
right?
muzzleload, bear. I mean, we do have some bear on the. I mean, if there's moose, I haven't seen them yet, and I'm not really into the moose yet. So I'm going to just try to focus on this combination bear and deer during rifle season.
But the hunts you're donating are bow hunts, right?
Yeah.
October bow hunts.
Well, we can pretty much go whatever's not booked up, you
Yep.
know.
Yep.
It's 3 days. And like I said, the person who wins it
Can bring another one.
can bring a guest. And it can bring 2 guests.
Yep.
You know, I just would like them to, and I'll give them a discount on the 3 days also. you
Yeah,
know?
so it's the first 2 guests are free, and that third you got to find a paying guest to occupy that third spot there.
Right.
Yep. That's really awesome. I think that's great, and I think people should definitely experience it, especially people who I get a lot of comments when they listen to the podcast that people who didn't grow up in a camp atmosphere or never hunted out of a camp and just want to experience hunting out of a camp and that kind of cool camaraderie and because you're gonna be there, cooking.
I actually
What's
have
the
a
food
chef.
situation?
My caretaker's mother.
Yep.
I've eaten because I've gotten on board with these guys up there. They're doing maple syrup. I forget the name of our company now.
Oh, there's a million of them, Vermont maple
I know,
syrup.
but these guys, I mean, they got quite the thing going there. We made quite a bit of maple syrups last year, but anyway, I just lost my train of thought.
Cooking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the cooking. But as we were doing the maple syrup, I experienced the mother,
Yeah.
which is Andy, the caretaker, and his father, Rob, Woody, and his uncle, Richard. You know, I mean, baked beans, this woman here, I mean, when you get the real big chunks of salt pork, I love that stuff. And, I mean, everything that she cooks.
Yeah.
So, and I've been going up there now last year, and that's the one thing I had in Pennsylvania. My old partner was the chef. He went out to school for that. And I don't want to be a cook, and I don't plan on trying to be a cook.
Yeah.
You know, but I talk
See, it's
to her.
like you're like me when you're not good at doing something.
Yeah.
Maybe even if you're good, but
Well, like I said,
You
I
gotta
started
delegate.
eating
Somebody
her
knows what they're doing.
macaroni and the different foods that she was supplying us for cooking down here. And I go, I asked a few of the girls down at the grocery store down in town, you know, and they we'll check it out for you. You know, I said, you hear of anybody that's, you know, because I just want the meals prepared and brought to the cabin, and you know, we're gonna have breakfast, sandwiches for lunch and that kind of stuff. Unless you want to go back to the cabin, I like to hunt all day, but you don't have to. You know, you can do whatever you basically want. And the thing is that this area here, the way the cabin's set up with these pines, there's no way you can get lost. I mean, it's amazing how this thing is. The guy who built this cabin knew what he was doing, and it's the lay of the land.
is it gorgeous? Gorgeous land.
Yeah, it's really, really, and I mean, I've seen some impressive spots that I know the deer. You know, I've got some stories with that too, with the muzzleloader, that I was there in the foggy, snowy, you know, and it was definitely having all the experience that I have. I definitely spent too much time focusing on an area that I knew the deer were going to come out of the bedding area, and I kind of focused on that. And then when I turned around, there they were all standing behind me, you know. And of course, I could only shoot a buck because I didn't have a doe tag. And you know, you're there. I actually was shooting with my flintlock, and the pole and the gun were leaning up against a tree, and you know, I watched this doe grazing, and you know, I couldn't shoot her, but I will tell you this: you should be prepared just in case something does show up, like it did.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I saw the antlers and everything, and of course, by the time my left hand reached over he was long gone, you know. But you know,
They're real skittish. The bucks in Vermont are skittish.
yeah, you know, the thing is that sometimes, you know, you focus on, like I said, that one doe was standing there, but I had been focusing on that other area for so long that, you know, it could have been 12 deer that walked by there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They
Yeah.
were all it was foggy. It
Yep.
was all rolling in and rolling out. You know what I mean? I should have been prepared. And as soon as I saw them tines, I mean, I think he was a nice 8-pointer. He was a good-sized deer, but, you know, by the time I realized that there was another one standing there, it was too late.
Another thing is Vermont, anybody can shoot a crossbow too. So if you ever thought about, getting in there or wanting to try out crossbow, they can bring a crossbow up for the bow season.
Yeah. The one thing I like about Vermont too is that it's not like Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, you got to, and Massachusetts, you got to. Vermont, you can go up there, buy a license, bow license,
Yep.
and you can buy you get an archery stamp with it.
Yeah.
And you can do that 4 times.
Yep.
You can shoot 4 does. You can only shoot 1 buck during the season.
Yep.
But you can
Yeah, it's
you
all
can
new.
go,
Yeah.
You can go and buy your tag, and I think I forget, I should have that on my. I think it's like $38 for this. You can actually do 2 things. You can buy a $120 license that allows you to shoot with the rifle and shot muzzle load, but you got to get a muzzle loader stamp. Or you can buy a $70 just archery license.
Yeah.
That you can only
Which
hunt.
they'll probably do if they win this.
Yeah,
free,
just
yeah.
right. It'd be a $70 archery license, and then it's $38 for each antlerless deer permit, doe permit.
So you get one to start out with.
Right.
Try to shoot it, go for a buck. You shoot, get a doe.
Right.
Yep. The other thing I was going to say about that, before we can get into some deer stories and stuff. So one of those, you're going to donate one of those 2-person 3-day hunts to someone who donates. So anybody who turns in their scorecard at the end of the 3D archery course back to Gerry at the tent, he's going to do a drawing out of all the 3D scorecards that are turned in. So if you're shooting the course and you return your card, that's one way. That's a special raffle for that. And what's the overall value again of the hunt that you're giving away?
$1,200.
Yep, which is awesome. And it's like it's not even the value of that; it's the experience of going
Well,
and having
with
a 3-day hunt
everything,
somewhere
with the
else.
doctor and stuff, I'm trying to, I'm not out there to make money off of this. I think my experience, for one, is worth something, and all the work that I'm doing to, the trails and all the stands are going to be set up. I'm going to have each zone that I'm trying to focus on right now is going to have a fixed stand, a ladder stand, and either a natural ground blind or some kind of ground blind. I have a couple. I actually have one of the locals down here that's going to be making me up a couple 2-seater, that you can be undercover and stuff like that in case it's bad weather. So each zone is going to have that. So if you are in the tree and it starts to rain, you'll be able to go to the ground blind and get out of the weather.
That's great.
And I also have either the fixed stand or the ladder stand in each position. I also have from Hunter Safety System they were sponsoring me, the umbrellas that they have with the
the tree umbrellas. I used to always use those.
But not. This is the one that has the you actually hook onto that with your tether.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. They've been selling them for a while. I think they stopped making them now, but I have a bunch of them anyway. And it actually it's really nice, and the umbrellas are there, and you can use them up. So each spot's going to have an undercover a spot that you can get out of the weather and or the umbrella. And if anybody wants to come with a climbing stand, that's going to be allowed also. The only thing I'm trying to do is I'm trying to manage the area before I give it too much pressure. So I'm going to have the zone that's going to be zone 1. I want people that are hunting that zone that's going to stay in that zone.
Yep.
So you're not wandering off. I do have other areas that I plan on having the guys that want to do the spot and stalk.
Yeah.
It's down in a different zone.
And is there public land nearby there? I'm sure there is. In Vermont, there's.
I've been so busy with this, I haven't even checked that out.
I'll look into that with you on OnX after this, because I just look at OnX. We'll show it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really, I right now I don't have an interest for any,
Yeah, but if somebody wanted to just have that camp atmosphere, but they're like, hey, I want to roam, then you're just like, if you have a nice piece of public around that's 40,000 acres of Green Mountain National Forest or something, that'd be nice to know.
There's a lot of that up there somewhere. I mean,
Yep.
and like I said, it's, right now I have ATV access, so, I'm working on trying to get a side-by-side club cab. I do have a couple of them there, but they always seem to be occupied when I need them. So I'm going to try to get my own, so I'd be able to drive them right out of from the cabin right to your spot.
Well, it sounds like a fun, unique experience. You're an awesome guy to hang around with. Like, it's going to be fun no matter what. You're going to get the atmosphere of being in a camp. I'm telling you, there's something about a Vermont camp, too. I mean, it's just different. As much as I do pick on the Vermont hunting, it's only because I'm picking on Big Woods, Vermont public land where there was so many hunters parked up and down the roads versus, like, sneaking into suburban Massachusetts land, where small patches and there's, you got more opportunity at bucks down here.
Yeah.
Vermont private land, that's where there's a lot of really big buck shot there, and the farm country and all that is all still really good, and deer are concentrated around it.
Yeah, and the way this land is set up too is it's like off of the road, and it's really, I mean, I know people have snuck in there. I mean, it's not posted to say, but nobody's really hunted the property in years.
Yeah.
Hard, if they are, they're hunting off the edges and stuff, and I don't know of anything that's been harvested of any quality or anything, but other than what my brother had shot at. But and I know Vermont a few years ago they had a little bit of an issue with, I guess, because we had hunted up by East Barnett years ago. My buddy Bob Coakley had a nice A-frame up there until he introduced it to his wife, and then that was that. But yeah, I guess they opened up, I think in that year, I forget what year that was, they had I guess they had a real bad, harsh winter, and they had opened up a lot of the doe permits, I think, and for some reason, the whole thing went off kilter. Yeah, I think it was even earlier than that.
Okay.
I think it was in the 90s that, so they've been trying to recoup a lot of that.
I know that in the early 80s, I think it was, where a lot of the deer herd was wiped out because there was doe permits in rifle season even. It wasn't like bow so that people slaughtered a lot of does.
Yeah.
And it really did a number on the herd. That was in the early 80s. I don't know.
Yeah, I try, I mean, I don't say that I won't shoot a doe, but, I try to get them. I try to get them during bow season.
I need to shoot more does, that's for sure. Like, like this year I'm going to shoot early season does.
Yeah. I try to stay away from them in the late season because, I mean, you could be killing 3. They could be having twins, some of them even having triplets.
Yeah, but in places where the deer are overpopulated, some of these towns, you kind of want, we say as hunters that we want to keep the population in check. So, as much as you don't want to think about you shot a pregnant mom.
No. I mean, Massachusetts, that's a little bit of a different situation.
Vermont's problem too is that the buck to doe ratio is off, and that's partly why they went down to 1 buck and now are allowing 4 doe in a season. Because it used to be 2 bucks and I forget, maybe two bucks and 2 does, and that was it. But Vermont does have an issue with that. The buck to doe ratio across the state is pretty bad.
Yeah, I checked with the fisheries and wildlife there. Matter of fact, I got a girl in the office. She loves me. Once she found out what I was, she was real happy to know that, that what we were doing. But she's been really cooperative and stuff. And I found from her that the population in our area, I forget what the number was now, but it's there. It's we should be having some interesting sites.
Yeah, Vermont's had some good winters the last few years, and the deer population has definitely been doing well. The biggest buck ever shot off of my camp road last year in my Vermont deer camp that I'm aware of, and probably a couple decades, was shot last year by our neighbor down the road, Pond Jim. He shot a beautiful buck.
With the bow, or was he rifle?
It was rifle. Yep. It was during rifle season. He hunts bow down there too, but it was rifle season. He actually went out. What was it? First or second? I can't remember what weekend it was, but he went out and I think he drank a little bit too much the night before, so he got a late start and he didn't get into the woods till like 8:30 or something. And he was kind of kicking himself, but then the buck comes by at like 8:45 or whatever it was, 15 minutes after, but he didn't get in the woods before dark. And I always used to kick myself to get in the woods before dark. You have to, like in my head, I'm a hunter. I have to be up at 4 a.m. and I got to be in my spot half hour before, and I kill myself with that over and beat myself up, and then I do get worn out by it. But that's how I've always hunted. When I came back from Vermont camp last year after Pond Jim got that big one, and he was celebrating the night we went down, and that night, and he was drinking. We were drinking with him, and he was celebrating a lot. And he was just like, "Look, you don't have. That's proof. You don't have to get in the woods.
No,
I
don't believe that
super
at all.
early. You don't have to." So I brought that back with me here, and that was Sunday. I drove back Sunday, and I was like, you know what, Monday, and it was November 22nd was Monday, and I was thinking to myself, I'm like, man, I'm gonna sleep in. I'm gonna wake up, take my son to daycare, and just not think about it, and be really relaxed. And then after I drop him off at daycare, I'm gonna get out into the woods. It's gonna be a late start, but after that, I'm gonna do that. So that's what I did, and that's when I shot that second one that I told you is in the taxidermist. I didn't get into the woods that day until like 8:30, and I didn't shoot that buck until 10:30. But it was 8. I got in the woods at 8:30. I was really. I wasn't tired. I was like refreshed. I was relaxed, and it was a rainy, windy day. And I just slowly took my time walking around and still hunting. And then I caught that buck cruising at 10:30 a.m. Like they so often do that. I've been doing more research and interviewing a lot of people. They do that in that kind of late November, like mid to late November 15th to the 30th. They seem to bed down. They go back to bed a little earlier in the beginning to get some rest, and then they get up. So then they get up, a little bit earlier and are cruising a little bit more. So that's just what happened, and it was awesome because he said that on Sunday. I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna kill myself to get back, get some sleep, get up super early. I'm gonna go out late, and then that very day it worked.
Yeah.
No,
I'm definitely one of them guys. Get up 4 o'clock in the morning. I try to be out of camp by 5. And I actually want to be in my stand.
I'm still going to be that guy.
Totally set up and stuff. And what I do is if it's not, depends on the stand that I'm in. If it's not that comfortable, I'll go down to the bottom of my tree.
Yep.
And I'll take a nap right there. But most of the time, I'm secured with my harness. And that's why I always, with the tree stand safety aspect, I always make sure I put my harness, my tether, as high as I can possibly reach. That way there I can walk right out comfortably without even, I can do a dance up there if I want. And I feel secure that the most I'm going to drop is inches.
What kind of dance do you do up there?
But I'll just, once I get hooked up and stuff, I'm hooked up from the time I climb up anyway. And then I set my tether up high and I just sit in the stand and put my hat over my eyes, and I'll take an hour nap.
There's nothing better than sleeping in the woods, though.
Yeah, I'll take an hour nap.
I do it a lot.
Yeah,
especially in rifle
you're
season.
nice and comfy, and
Vermont,
and then when you wake up, you're nice and
And you wake up like you probably like me, where if you do take some nap, like I'm guilty of that during Vermont rifle season when I'm not still hunting, and it's just like I'm gonna sit on this ridge or whatever, lean against a tree. I'm always taking a nap because I'm up early.
Yeah.
I'm probably drinking a few beers the night before.
Well, that's one thing I stopped in 1996.
Your ears are trained to the crunch, aren't they?
Oh, yeah.
As soon as you hear anything, and even trained somewhat to filter out
always the squirrels.
And you're not going to wake up to that, but you know the deer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And people say about the squirrels and stuff, and they're out there. I had a red squirrel in Pennsylvania for 4 years in a row, and every time I'd go up there, I'd set my stand up. I was right in the tree that he wanted to go through on his routine, and he would sit there for hours and yak at me until I finally either threw something at him, threatened to shoot him, and he knew, and he would leave finally, but he would be yakking and yakking, and I go, you're letting everybody know I'm here, but he wanted to go through that tree, and, it was amazing, and I don't know, maybe a coyote got him eventually, or maybe even a fisher cat, but he was
I've watched a lot of deer. Being a bow hunter, I've watched a lot of deer, and one of my favorite things to do when I know I'm not shooting the deer is watch them, but listen for other things going on around, and then see how the deer reacts to it. And I've seen a lot. You always hear like, you hear a bunch of blue jays going, or ravens, or freaking crows, or whatever. Like, look, because there's going to be a deer coming, maybe, right? Like I've never seen a deer going through and have all the birds going nuts when the deer is approaching. I haven't seen that. But I have seen when a coyote runs through, the birds will do it. When a predator's coming through, the birds will go nuts.
Or you go through.
Yeah,
Yeah, a
Or
deer.
if I go
I
through.
mean, for some, they don't even. It doesn't phase them
But
at all
then-
because they know the deer aren't going to be doing them any harm. Where
Mm-hmm.
a coyote or a fisher cat or, a hawk especially, comes into the area. All the birds, because
Yep.
they know they're going to be.
Yeah, bird of
doing-
prey, definitely.
Right. You
Yep.
know, they're going to be doing them some damage. Where a deer, like you say, I mean, myself personally over the years, I know the difference, and I mean, I've had them where they've walked right up to me and totally amazed that that deer went the distance that it did, and I never even heard a twitch. And there it is standing there,
Yeah.
And it's like, oh,
Yep. They'll sneak up on you.
and that's why, like I said before about the shooting with my flintlock and so forth, that I was focusing too long on an area that I try not to do. Whenever I'm in my stand, I try to focus on a regular basis, on what's around me and, and starting from point one right around to the other side and taking maybe a half hour, 45 minutes to do that.
Yeah.
Moving your head quickly, your eyes, even your eyes. Your eyes, they'll pick up on that in a heartbeat. That's
Yep.
why I try not to make any kind of eye contact. And that's one of the things
I never make
that
eye contact.
No, that's one of the things that I try to, the people that I'm trying to, I should say mentor or however you want to say that, but the ones that don't have anyone that they can look up to or can bring them out there and help them, to get acclimated and understand, and I mean, I got one friend of mine, I mean, he finally, I think, shot a deer last year. I mean, the guy eats so much, he doesn't even come into my office and I can smell him. I mean, he's
Onions and
garlic.
garlic?
The garlic just reaps out.
Yeah, that's one thing I stopped doing the last few years. Is
Yeah,
actually
and-
during the deer season,
and,
stopped eating onions and garlic.
Yeah.
And that's when I used to
Comes
eat the
out-
most onions and
yeah,
garlic.
comes
but
out-
it makes so much sense.
Yeah, and this guy here, Louis, he'd say, he'd be so frustrated. He said, Gerry, I don't even see a deer. And I go, I can tell you why.
Yeah.
I said,
you
they
reek.
smell you. They smell you way before you even get out of your truck.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's, you're not going to, you might find one that's stupid that, just happened, the wind direction's going to be perfect. And that's the thing you want to play too, is the wind direction, never mind your scent.
Well, some of the spots, like in the suburbs that I've been in, I've been sitting in the stand and
Swirling
distinctly been able to smell someone's dinner. And in one of my best places in the past few years, where I killed that buck, that 9-pointer there, and I had a much bigger 9-pointer come in after him, and I've shot at a bunch of deer in there, and there's a lot of buck signs ripped up. I was sat in that stand one time, and I smelled, like, with the right wind, somebody had Thai food. I knew the exact smell. It was Thai food. So those deer, sometimes when you're somewhat near houses, they're going to be used to some of that stuff, some of those smells, and some of that dog walking activity. And because in that same stand, I've been watching a deer come in, and then I've heard the ching 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 of a dog's little doggy tag on his, and somebody walking their dog on a trail that's 300 yards away, but you can hear it on a quiet day. And I've been watching that deer.
He knows they're there.
To see what they do, what he does, and he doesn't give a shit. He's very basically like he'll look over, like, I remember him looking over like that for a second and then just going back down to
Yeah, because he
eating.
knows they're not going to bother him.
Yeah, it's 300 yards away. He know if he got closer, that deer would be out of there. But he was like, "All right, I've heard that before. I know that trail. This sound's gonna get faintly further away." And he's heard of that before, so it doesn't really bother them that much.
No, I ended up one time on a hunt in Pennsylvania. I was with my brother-in-law, and we happened to be up on Jack's Mountain, as a matter of fact. And this whole group of guys, we were there early in the morning, and this whole group of guys came into that area, and they were going to put on a drive. They posted their guys, and they had the drivers coming through, and they were, most of them guys probably already had their buck and stuff, so they were doing pots and pans and all kinds of noise, and I was up on the ridge. They didn't even know we were there.
Yeah.
And I watched the drive come through. As a matter of fact, I was kind of scared because I'm like, I'm in the middle of their drive. I didn't mean to. I didn't know they were putting on a drive.
Yep.
And I literally watched the drivers come down through, and the deer was walking in front of him, came up towards me, and went
Yeah.
right around the back of the driver,
Yeah.
and followed him.
Yeah.
He was following him. She was. It was
Yeah.
a doe, but yeah, came
they'll-
right up
they'll
around,
split
up
'em.
by me, and just I mean, I couldn't shoot her anyway because I didn't have a dope tag, and it was, but yeah,
They'll split them, and it's like that buck that I was showing you. His older brother here, the curved brow tines, that he's all over the place. I have him on. It's the only buck ever that I've had on.
different locations.
No, I've had tons of different locations, but on literally every camera that I had in these two couple towns, because I spread my cameras out an hour away from here in all directions. But I have the local, the more local ones, and it was the only one that literally hit them all. And so he's a big roamer, but he must, know how to avoid certain places and certain times, and he's a mature buck.
I mean, I've seen them bed down. You walk within 20 yards of them, and you keep on walking,
Yeah.
and they'll stay right there.
Yep.
But as soon as you make that stop and take a look at them or turn towards them, and they're like a flash.
Yep.
They're up out of there, and they know they're ready to go.
But it's different in different scenarios too. Like even so, a couple weeks ago, I was going to check a camera, one of my summer cameras, and I posted this on my Instagram. A lot of people listening probably saw the video, but I was on my way in to check that camera, and I'm on a pretty main trail, in some nice CRP brushy stuff, which is my favorite place in the summer to put cameras up. They just love that. It's so much cover. The stuff, it's up to your chin, the CRP. So that's where those will lay their fawns in there. Bucks will bed in there. They're just completely safe. And I'm on a main trail going in to check this camera, and I just go, I have that feeling. There's something. I'll turn and look, and I can see tines sticking up out. And this is
And he's peeking right through all that stuff.
mid-June. It's just tines, and I can see his eyes like this.
Yeah.
And they're looking at me.
Yeah.
But I keep walking because I know as soon as I stop, he's gone. So I know he's there. I keep walking until I get this big bush between us. I stop, pull my phone out, and then slowly walk back out with my phone, and then stop and just keep my phone there, but never looking him in the eyes. But I keep my phone and I stay there, and he still thinks he's in over his head. He's up to his eyes, and he thinks if I just stay still, this thing, whatever this thing is, he doesn't know that I'm here. So we had this standoff, and it was 5 minutes and 45 seconds because I filmed the whole thing with my phone. I didn't move an inch. I didn't look at him in the eyes. I was actually looking at the screen because I could see him better that way, and then he couldn't see me looking at him. But yeah, 5 minute, 45 second standoff. He was just thinking, I'm safe. Whatever this thing is going to keep going, but eventually he blew and took a couple pounds. It's great footage. I'll show you after this. Really cool.
Well, that's the thing, the wind direction, and once
and it goes back to the eyes, though.
Yeah.
It's something.
Oh, yeah, you don't.
Something I learned the other day, which was really cool, is, humans. Look at most animals in the world. They don't have whites of their eyes. Most animals, their eyes are completely black or brown, and it's one color. They don't have whites. Humans had to learn, because we're more intelligent than the rest of the animals, we had to learn that I got to know what you're thinking, and what you're thinking is what you're looking at. What your intentions are what you're looking at. So we had to know, hey, is Gerry going to stab me in the back? Is Gerry going to kill, my caveman wife and kill me and my kids and all that stuff, right? You have to think about that. That's how we evolved from apes, because we got smarter than the apes were, and it's because we learned to look at each other in the eyes and what the eyes are doing, because the eyes give the intention of everything that you're going to do. So as we evolved, for the human species to evolve further, we got more whites of the eyes, because if I look that way, immediately I'm looking that way, don't you? Even if I'm 200, 300 yards away, you can go, oh, that person's not looking at me. Because our ability to detect each other's eyes, because of the whites, that's what one of the things that allowed us to advance.
And a lot of people, when they want the truth, that's what they'll tell you. Look me straight in the eye.
Yeah. Well, that's where we learn everything from everybody. You can learn it from people's eyes and their eye contact, but you can also see their intentions from hundreds of yards away sometimes, depending on how good your eyesight is. But like I was practicing at the pool the other day. I was like, man, I could see. My wife was all the way on the other side with my son, and I was in the hot tub. and this is like at our gym that we belong to. So it was like 100 yards on the other side. And I can see exactly what they're doing, what their intentions are, where they're planning on going, and everything. And that's, I think, because we have whites in our eyes, and deer are so hyper in tune with that stuff. As soon as you move our eye, they're not used to seeing whites. They're used to, and they're in tune with predators looking at them, and we're predators too, but in their eyes, we are even more easy to detect than a bobcat or a coyote's eyes or whatever, because we have these big whites. So that's why I think you got to keep your eyes not only not looking at them, but keep them still.
Yeah, you don't
Like
want to.
don't not look at them, but then be looking all over the place, because your eyes are moving and they're going to see that.
Right.
So whenever I get in those,
even blinking,
I'm really good at those standoffs. I get in a lot of them with deer, and I like to practice it. And the number one thing when you're in a standoff with a deer is just keep your eyes still and off of that deer. Just look at one thing, still and off. And if it's a deer you want to shoot and you can't yet, you have to hold that, use your peripheral. Don't ever move your eyes. And then when they make a move, that's when you make your move. They have to, but when you're in that standoff, you got to keep those eyes still.
Right. Yeah, and you don't want to make any sudden movement. Any
Definitely not.
Any little movement, they'll pick up on that in a heartbeat. I've even had it where I just happened to move my foot in the stand.
Oh yeah.
Because it was a little uncomfortable, and it's strange too. It always seems when you have that standoff, that's when all of a sudden things start cramping up, and you start getting
mosquitoes.
You start getting uncomfortable, and
you got
and
an
it's
itch
like,
on your nose.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
And it's like, how come that's happening now, And then all you got to do is just move. You're in their living room. That's where they're so used to walking through there. They know when anything is off. How many times, you're up there in a tree stand, they'll come into the woods, and the first thing they do is look up at you and say, what in the hell? That wasn't there yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's
That's why you got to put your stands up early.
Yeah.
If you're in a new spot. Yeah, I heard somebody say, imagine, you keep your room exactly the same as it always is, your bedroom, and you go on a vacation and you come back a week later, and you're going to notice a slight thing moved in there, and you're going to notice immediately and be like, well, something is off. And that's exactly what deer experience. When we change their environment.
Yeah, well, yeah, for sure. That's how they get big.
Yeah.
The little ones, they're usually too stupid. They don't have the experience.
They're dumber. Yeah. And you can get second chances with those little ones sometimes. Like, I've jumped a little buck before and then just wanted to play with them because I know I'm not going to shoot them. But, after you jump them and they blow out of a spot, see what you could do to maybe coax them back. And I've, played with blowing at them and had them come right back to 15 yards, where if I was at a different journey point in my hunting career and I wanted to shoot a little 6-pointer, calling him back, I would have been able to do it there. So if you jump one up and you're happy with a little 6-pointer, blow at him, give him the, because that's all I did, and he went
Yep.
after I jumped him, and he just came stomping back in like this, stiff-legged, and came to 15 yards. And if I wanted to shoot him, I could have killed him. Yeah. It's fun to play. Play with them and learn.
Yeah,
stuff
a lot of times they don't know what the noise is, unless they can focus on it. But if you just give them a blow, like you say, or even sometimes just give a little hout, a little hey, and they'll they'll kind of stop and check on what's going on, try to pick up on what's happening, and But talk about 6-pointers, that's what this guy was.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's go into this story, because this one is such an awesome story.
Yeah, this guy was a 6-pointer. And how this all originated is years ago, I was hunting with I think it was Kmart or Walmart. Yeah, I think it was Kmart. They had the old bear bows.
And he's your only mounted buck, even though you've killed 12 pointers and bigger bucks and stuff. He's your only mounted buck, so this is a good story.
No, he's not the only mounted.
Oh, I thought you said he was.
No, I've got, but this is how I mount them.
Okay, all right.
I don't have any mounts like that.
All right, I got you. Yep.
This one here is.
Yep.
No, I just cut them off. I don't.
Yep. All right.
I don't know. I haven't got to that point yet that I need something on the wall. But, well, what happened with him is that, like I said, I was hunting this old bear bow, and of course, back then, you didn't have Reedy's or Jerry's Bait and Tackle, and, some of the
But
other.
it was after an extensive layoff of you not hunting, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was. I was hunting the Berkshires with shotgun. Had some beautiful deer up there we've killed, and
'Cause you got to tell that part. That's the best part is you get back into it in the first day.
yeah, the thing was is that I was hunting the shotgun and rifle in Pennsylvania, and so here in Mass, I had given up the bow because with the 29-inch draw length, I only shoot 26. So realistically, in order for me, I should have had
You
the
were
bow.
pulling back here.
Yeah, I should have had the string behind my ears, which would have taken it off. So with my string on my nose and and having my good anchor point, which is one of
weren't
the most
getting
important
speed or
things,
anything.
I was shooting fingers also, where now you got releases and stuff. And I don't even think you could shoot a release back then. And so I was drawing it to here. So when I pulled it up to pull it back, of course, I wasn't breaking the cams. So I was holding that 65 pounds
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
So I would pull it up, draw it back, and let it go. And I was mostly hunting birds. I used to hunt. I got some pheasants with it and rabbits, but I never really went out deer hunting. It was mostly shotgun and rifle. So I kind of gave that up as far as the archery aspect of it and decided to start fishing Wachusett Reservoir in the fall. And I ended up at Jerry's Bait and Tackle waiting for some bait, and it was the weekend before hunting season opened, bow. And I was there, and all the guys the last minute, and they were busy and
Getting fired up.
oh yeah, everybody's talking, and I'm like, hey, and they're all, hey Jerry, how come you're not part of this, and and I'm like, hey, I don't know, I used to bow hunt, and it wasn't set up properly. I don't have the right draw length, and then Jerry, I think it was, that said, hey, no problem, come on back, and we'll set you up with a bow. And I went home, told my wife, and a couple of years before that, I was going out to Pennsylvania hunting, and I didn't have a rifle. I only hunt shotgun, and I wasn't going to the big woods of Pennsylvania with a shotgun, even though I could have. Every one that I have ever shot out there would have been, they were within distance, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They weren't like 300, 400 yard shots.
Exactly.
So, it was really.
Similar to Vermont.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure that if I showed up in Pennsylvania with a shotgun in my hand,
You would have had a
they'd all-
300-yarder.
those guys would say, "Hey, you know what? What's the matter? You can't afford a rifle or something?" So anyway, we went to Lou Horton's, as a matter of fact, when they were open, and my buddy Dickie Gould, he had a 7mm that I had shot, and I really liked the caliber. I thought it was a nice gun, so I went there looking for that. And I had just finished playing softball, and I had dislocated my shoulder. And it was like just a couple weeks going down the road that I was going to be hunting Pennsylvania. So when I was there, I'm in a sling and all that, and I saw a nice Browning 7mm Winchester style, and of course the salesman, he don't care. He's going to sell me anything. So all of a sudden Lou, who happened to be there, I never even met the man before. He said, he came over to me and he said, "Hey, I understand that you're going to Pennsylvania hunting, right?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "You like that 7mm, huh?" And I said, "Yep." He said, "Well, I'm going to tell you something right now. You said you had a dislocated shoulder, right? Fairly new." So he said, "You're going to get one shot with that 7mm.
Yeah.
So make it good, because it's probably going to dislocate your shoulder because it has a lot of kick to it." He said, "If I was you, I recommend," and he grabbed one right next to it, same gun, looked to me the same thing. It was a 308, Browning 308, and I love that gun. The only thing I don't like about that gun is the safety aspect. The safety aspect is you got to pull the trigger and let the hammer down.
Yeah.
So if you have mittens on
that's
or
just
gloves
like my
on,
old 32 special I used to hunt
if
with.
you have mittens on, this happened to me the first time. We all got out of our trucks, got the clip that has a clip, put the clip in, put one in the chamber, right? Put my thumb on the hammer, went to pull the trigger. I had my mittens on, the Velcro. I didn't have enough pressure on the hammer. Pow. You talk about 6 guys jumping out of their
Jesus
skin.
Christ. Yeah.
And luckily, to this day, I didn't have that pointed at a truck, a car, or a person. I had it up in the air.
That's because you know as a hunter and someone who took hunter safety and all that. Yeah,
But
ever pointed it.
I never expected that to ever go off, though.
Yeah.
You know, it'll never happen
But that's
again.
what saved people's lives is that you at least you knew what the hell you were doing.
It would never happen
safety-wise.
again. I'm surprised it has that type of a safety on it. But like you say, other guns have the same thing. So anyway, I was there at Gerry's, and I ended up going back. I went home and I asked my wife, and she said, "Yeah, you can buy a bow. Don't." I think she said, "Don't spend any more than $400," which back then,
We'll get you a good bow.
not bad. Nowadays, I mean, you're talking $1,200, right? Just for a stripped down bow. But anyway, I ended up there, and Gerry, we had an edge, and I've shot a lot of deer with that bow. I still have that bow. I don't
What
think
is honestly I don't know what an edge
it's
is.
a PSE edge.
Oh, PSE. Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's a PSE edge. It's got the small wheels on it, and I was shooting fingers. The one problem I had with that is I had one of them wire rest, the little flipper wire rest.
Yep.
And those things, you got to be careful because if they I had hooked up, and I actually missed 2 times at a monster buck. 143, I think and a friend of mine ended up shooting him with the shotgun, but
146.
and so what happened was we got set up with the bow and arrows and all that, and I was at my shop. Monday, of course, is opening day, and I still had to work. I didn't take any vacation time, and so I practiced. And if anybody's ever been at my old shop, I had these lofts, upper areas that were like 12 feet up in the air. So I was actually shooting from a fairly decent height elevation, simulated to hunting out of a stand.
Yep.
I like hunting a lot higher, but depends on the area also. So anyway, I was practicing all week long. Came to Saturday, I worked half a day, 12 o'clock. I'm shooting a pie plate at 30 yards consistently. And I'm saying, I know where the deer are. I feel secure enough to, and confident enough that, I think I can shoot a deer. So I ended up going over to the area where I was at and found this run, the stone wall and the whole scenario. And off of the 2 runs coming to a V, I found this, which I had to do, is I had to find a Y in the tree. So I could nail the 2x4s on the inside of the Y so I could set the base.
This is back when you had to actually build your stand with wood.
Yeah, well, we had tree stands. You
but
had
a lot of people are still
lock-ons.
doing that, right?
Yeah, you had lock-ons and stuff like that. I mean, I could have gone out and bought one up at Bass Pro, or but I just said I'll take I took my backpack with a bunch of spikes and some 2x4s.
Is that platform still in that tree? You think the one you're talking about?
They developed that whole area.
Yeah.
I actually built a bigger one than that I had the experience on with the big buck. But to get back to that,
you found the Y that you needed.
yeah, I found the Y. So now I had to put the 2x4s, climb up into it, set the 2x4s so I could set the base plate of the stand. But then I had to take the 2x4s out of the Y because I'm underneath the plywood. I can't get in it. So I had to nail them on the outside of the tree to climb up into the stand.
Yeah.
And it was funny because my brother, who had been hunting bow for a few years before me, he was in that same section of woods. We didn't have any communication at all that I even intended on going hunting until that afternoon. And I didn't even know he was there. He was parked in a different location, and I was at my mother's house. So when he heard all the commotion going on, me building this stand, he thought there was kids in the woods building a tree fort or something. So, and then no sooner did I get up in the tree, I wasn't, after building the stand.
You built it the day you were hunting?
Yeah. When I got there, when I saw the area, and I built the stand then, got in it, and from the time that I got in it, built it, I just say it was an hour. Here comes this 6-pointer. And what I did is I made the biggest mistake you could do, especially with the bow, is, the run came off to my right and then came off to my left. It forked off. And when he came in to that area, I didn't give him the opportunity to take either one of them runs. I shot at him straight on. So, it was a mistake because
one of the best parts about being in a place where the run split like that is that you've got you let him take one of those.
Exactly. Yeah. You want him to go by you so you can get a quarter of the way shot.
Yep.
But like I said, first time back in the woods, it's like, wow, I ain't even here an hour, and here's this nice 6-pointer. So I shot at him, and luckily I missed it. What happened was there was a little sapling, pine sapling, and I hit the sapling, and it ricocheted. I heard a ding and a snap, and next thing I know, this deer is running to my right, and I could see my arrow flying in the air with him, and he went up over the wall and took off. So I waited. I went over to where I shot him. I knew my arrow wasn't there because I saw it taking off with him, but I didn't know what the dinging and the snap was. So I went over there, and sure enough, the pine tree was just dangling. You could see where my razor caught the thing, and it was right at his heart, and it deflected off, and he went off. So I went over to the wall, searched from the point where I hit the sapling to the wall. There was no blood that I could find. Went over the wall, nothing there. It was thick going down. And I still had a couple hours worth of daylight. And tomorrow was Sunday. And this area here, I knew there wasn't anybody else in there hunting. Little did I know my brother was. But and so I said, I'm going to go back in the stand and hunt the rest of the evening. So I did. Went back in the stand, stayed there till dark, because I wanted to check out the area, and I do that. A lot of times I'll stay till just to see what comes in after, And a lot of times I don't want to leave the stand because, you never know what you're startling up coming in around you. So I walked down, and I was following the stone wall to get out, and I see a headlight down below in the dark and get closer to it, and it's my brother. And he goes, what the hell are you doing here? And I go, I'm hunting. What do you think? He goes, oh, was that you building the cabin? I said, no, I was building a tree stand. I said, believe it or not, I had a 6-point buck just come in on me, and I shot at him. I said, I don't know what happened, but I said, I know I hit the sapling, but I don't know. I saw my arrow running with him, and I said, tomorrow's Sunday. I said, I'm not going down here to try to find him in this thick stuff. So we left. Tomorrow morning, 7 o'clock, we come there.
Monday?
Sunday.
Oh, you did go Sunday.
Yeah. Saturday, I was hunting Saturday.
Yeah.
Sunday morning, we got there at 7 o'clock, and we started walking up the cart road. My brother started going up toward the tree stand, and I said, no. I said, that deer ran down, and it's at least down over that hill. It ran that way. So let's go down the cart road, and we'll come in from the other side, because I know where the wall is and stuff, and see, if we can find any blood. So I walk over, and I probably went another 50, 75 yards up the cart road, and then I just had this sneaking suspicion or something was telling me to turn around and look. And when I did, I see this funnel in the thick stuff. And I'm like, geez, that's strange. So I go in there. I had to bend down to get in there, and it was all tore up. It was, and right there is my arrow. And this is the broadhead that I shot him with. And what happened is little did I know, I had hit him in the leg. I broke his leg.
It's curved right here, yeah. What's that curve from?
Well, when I hit him, it was stuck in his leg. When he pulled it out.
Bone, probably, right?
Yeah, right in. Yeah,
it like that?
I broke his leg. That's how come the antler grew the way it did the next year.
Yeah.
So,
Oh yeah, that's right. We were talking about that. That's why this.
Right.
Because the
what
previous
happened
year.
Right.
Yeah.
He was a 6-pointer, and my arrow was.
You pulled that out of him the year you got him.
No, that was stuck on. That was with my arrow.
Okay, all right.
That was when he pulled it out. When he got in that area.
Wow, how does it come?
When he got in that area and he was circling around, he was trying to pull this thing out of his leg.
How does he do that? Usually, the arrow breaks off and that stays in him. I wonder how he got it all the way out.
No, it was down in the bottom. Let me show you.
Like it was in his,
Yeah.
the lower part of his leg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on. Should have that ready, I guess, huh?
No. Fine. I miss this. Like, my generation isn't gonna have printed out
I know.
photo books like that.
I
And
know.
it's awesome. Because,
Memories, man.
Because all I have is like, before we started this, I was scrolling through my phone to show you stuff. And then our phone gets full and we end up just deleting it if you don't have an external hard drive to download it to, and it just sucks. I like that.
Okay, right here. What happened was, and there's his leg.
Can you take that out
Yep.
for a second and we'll show the camera? Put that right here.
And you can see the knob on that. And when I cut him up and I dissected the knob on his leg, that's where that razor that's missing,
Yep.
that razor,
Yep.
is in that bone.
In there.
No, here.
Oh, up here.
Yeah. It went through here. This
Yeah,
is
okay.
where I shot him when I killed him.
Yeah.
You know,
That
I ended
knob
up
is what grew there
right. That
because
leg
of that was the injury he had from you
that,
the year
right.
before.
That's where the broadhead caught him in the leg, in that knob.
Interesting.
That this piece here. That's when I shot him that day. That was the arrow went through him because when I killed him, I shot him in the liver. I actually shot him back further in the liver,
Yep.
but that was the following year.
Yep.
So I went. I found in the brush where he had circled around. I found my arrow and the broadhead. But for a whole year I didn't know what happened to that deer. So now I hunt the same section of
the
woods.
year before, he was a six-pointer,
Six-pointer.
with two brows and didn't have that point, right?
I think
Because I love looking at antler studies.
he had this, and this. So he
Yep.
had three points on each side.
and the same thing on the other side.
Yep.
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 And then when you hit him on what was it, his left leg, right? Because normally you hear when they have a left injury, then their
that
right
was
antler.
Right. Yep, that's his left. Yep, right here. So yeah, that's his left leg,
Yep.
and that. Antler.
So when the left, so now people can
He's
see
got the
he hit him
injury.
on the left leg.
Right.
Injury was on the left side. His right antler became deformed.
Right.
Yeah.
So like I said, when I was hunting this deer, I had gone back in that. It was the same.
Do you think that's broken off?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely broke off.
Okay.
Probably,
So
he's probably a scrapper when he
Nothing
was.
happened to his other side. So.
No.
Yep.
No. He and so going back the next year, which that was 93 when I shot him then, I went back in 94. Now I've got, experience. I've already done, every 3D back then. I was practicing as much as I possibly could. And, I said, geez, the first year I shot this deer. Okay. I don't know what happened to him. I didn't get him. That's part of the experience, I guess. And so now I go back, different area, but the same section of woods, basically.
Yep.
And I went there the first day, and that's when this buck right here was chasing a doe.
Pull that one out.
Yep. Was chasing a doe, and he was all around me.
This buck is insane.
Yep.
So when he was first telling me the story, it was like there was this buck that went out like this. And, the only other buck I can relate that to when I hear people telling the story is Timmy Bolduck's buck from Big Woods Bucks, who you tracked this deer a couple of years ago, and it's on film, and it went straight up like this, like two baseball bats.
Yeah.
And when you see it after he killed it, you're like, holy shit, it really did that.
Yeah.
And the way you explained this, it went out like a V.
Yeah.
I mean, look at that thing.
It doesn't have much on the tines and stuff, but just envision that animal, and he was at that time when I first saw him, He was well over 300 pounds.
It's just an insane
And,
rack.
and this deer was chasing the doe all around me for hours. And she had a fawn, and he was just, I couldn't get him to stop for 2 seconds. He was all over the place. So
1, 2, 3, 4. Was he a 12-pointer?
I forget.
I don't even know. There's a lot of points on there.
Yeah. I forget how they scored him. But he was 148.6, but then with the deductions it was 143, I guess. Northeast Big Buck Club scored him for me. Like I said, my buddy.
Just because you were interested, because somebody else killed him, but.
Yeah. Geez, I can't even think of his name now.
Lucio?
No, he since has passed away, but. Luigi,
yeah.
from Franklin.
Yep.
And he shot him with a shotgun. And actually, when he shot him, the deer ran across the street and down by the Charles River. And he, what got him to stop was his antlers got wedged in between two trees.
No way. Yeah, I can see that.
He was stuck right there. He just ran right into the trees. And,
into a V?
Yeah.
Man, there's a lot of V's in you like to make your 3D courses through V's.
Yeah.
You're building your stands in a V or a Y in a tree, and you got bucks with V's.
So believe it or not, when that deer was running all around me, I said, no way in hell am I going to allow this thing to live. Yeah. I got to find a way to harvest that deer.
Yeah.
So my buddy Chink from Rentham, I've hunted a lot with him. He's an avid hunter. He actually was up the day before in the area.
Yep.
And I called him up and I said, Chink, you're not going to believe this buck that I just saw. And he said, whoa, were you over by your mother's house? And I said, yeah. He goes, I saw him yesterday. He says, as a matter of fact, he goes, I shot the fawn.
That he was chasing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, not the doe. The fawn that was with, I guess the mother had twins. So he shot one of the fawns because I saw the mother with the fawn. So she must have had twins. So he shot one of the fawns. And he said to me, he goes, did you see his scrape? And I said, no. He said, well, go out to the edge of the field. So I went out to the edge of the field, and sure enough, there was a scrape. So at that point in my time, every other day, I was going up to that field at night, 8, 9 o'clock at night, dark, and I was taking sticks, gloves. I made sure I had my gloves on. I went down here, and I totally disrupted this. I took the stick, and I scraped the living shit out of that scrape, the stick. And I took James Valley, and I swear by this stuff. James Valley dough and heat gel. Glob of it, throw it in there. Come back 2 days later. He would have the scrape all scraped up again. You'd see his, and I knew what his hoof print looked like. Had his hoof print in there and the stick. I did that like 4 or 5 days, 4 or 5 times, because I wasn't going back until, no, I did it. Yeah, I did it. No.
Do you ever pee in scrapes?
Yeah.
Yeah? Did you pee in that one?
No. No, I just put the James Valley. And the last time I went there, I actually had a root mass because I said, he's kicking these sticks out. So I used the root mass. And you wouldn't believe how far that thing was kicked out of that scrape. The last time, he was pissed. He was looking for something. Whatever was making was going in that scrape. He wanted.
Yeah, it's funny because this is before you were putting cameras up or anything.
Yeah.
And so did you put that root mass there just to see?
Yeah,
if it was moved, because then you would know that something went through there.
I knew the sticks were getting kicked out somewhat.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I just used the root mass because I wanted something bigger than just a little stick or whatever.
Yeah.
And he did. He came in there and he kicked that. I couldn't. When I first got there with my flashlight and I got to the scrape, I couldn't even find the root mass at first. It was like way over there.
So that probably got you so excited. You're like, oh yeah.
I said, yeah.
It's working.
So then I said, tomorrow morning I'm coming and I'm hunting. 4 o'clock in the morning. I think it was 3 o'clock in the morning that day. I was there early, and I got to the scrape, and I went over there, and I totally because he had kicked out, and I totally disrupted the scrape, and I threw it, the stick down in there with the James Valley dough and heat. But the one thing I did that I never, ever, ever, ever have ever done before is I went and I bought these dragon pads, because I said, I'm going to have this guy following me. So I went and I took the James Valley and I put it on my dragon pads, hooked them up to the back of my boots, and I followed the trail. And the run went right by where I originally had set up my stand. So, and I had a little lock on. I still got that stand. It's the lightest stand going. I mean, with screw-in pegs, you're in and out in no time. And it doesn't have a very big platform, but, I've sat in it for days. It's, comfortable for me. And
What kind of stand is it?
it's a lock-on.
Yeah, but what brand?
Lock-on.
Oh, I didn't
The
know it
old
was a brand.
lock-on,
All right, yeah.
Lock-ons. They
All
used to
right.
have the platform, the wooden platform.
I
years
thought that
ago.
was a type of
No,
stand.
Yeah, I don't think they make lock-ons anymore. But this was, I've got a few of them. And this was a real light one. I mean, it weighed 2 pounds, I think. Really nice. I like the stand. I mean, I don't use it much anymore because I'm mostly into lone wolf. But so anyway, I was walking, and as I was going down the run, I had the James Valley Doe and Heat gel, and I was dipping the branches down by the ground.
Shh.
So what happened?
You hear the coyotes? Every night. You hear all the coyotes yipping?
That's coyotes?
Oh, yeah. Every night you hear them here.
Really?
You hear them? I thought it was my son at first, but it's the coyotes.
Huh. Wow.
Oh, yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah, so I was dipping the branches, and I was walking down the run, and then all of a sudden I see this oak tree to my left. And I looked at the oak tree, and I walked over to it, and I looked at it, and I said, too much trimming. There's going to be too much trimming to do. I already have a tree set up where I had. And what I did is I took this, because I didn't want anybody stealing my stand, so I took the stand out, but I left all my screw pegs in. So I already had the location, the height where I was going to put it. All I had to do was take it off my back and hook up the strap to it. So 2 minutes, I'm back in my stand. So I walked over to where I had the tree, and I set up in it, and took a nap because it was, like I say, it was 2 hours, 3 hours probably before daybreak. But I wanted to make sure I was there because I'm going after that guy. So daylight come, and I'm sitting there, and I look down about 50 yards down over the ridge, and I see this Mutual of Omaha. I mean, this guy was impressive, but that deer down below, he had a rack. I mean, he had tines. I mean, there was some mass to this guy. But he was 50 yards away from me. Down, I could have shot at him.
If you were in that other oak tree, though, you would have...
No, he was down below. The other oak tree was up. So I tried grunting at that guy and stuff like that. And, he looked up at me and wasn't interested. The funny thing is that when I ended up shooting this deer, I ended up kicking that deer up. But to go back to the story, he was down below. All of a sudden, I hear this crunch, crunch, crunch noise. I turn around and look, and here he comes, right down the run, sniffing all the spots that I dipped.
Yeah.
Picking his nose up, and I mean, you look at that nose, I mean, it was like this. And he's sniffing, licking, trying to figure out where I went. All of a sudden, 25 yards away from me, he starts going left to my right. And I'm sitting there, all knocked. I was ready to go, and I'm going, if he goes up over that ridge, there's no way I'm going to be able to shoot at him. So, and I'm like 25 yards, I can hit a pie plate at 30.
Yeah.
So, this 300-pound deer, I shouldn't have too much of a problem killing him, right? But like I said, back to the wire rest, I guess when I was coming up the tree or letting my bow down, I hooked that wire so it was up out of the screw. So little did I know, I had my arrow, so I shot at him, and my arrow, the first one, went right underneath him. He didn't even know I shot at him. I mean, he just kept on walking. So I knocked another arrow, and I shot again. This time, I think I might have just nicked his chest bone.
Yep.
Because he jumped straight up in the air. I mean, it was amazing how high that deer went up, as big as he was. But I knew, he knew something was up. And it was like, I couldn't figure out what happened. So I knocked another arrow, and when I went to pull it back, I could see the thing. I said, I must have dropped my quiver or something. I must have bent, because I was shooting aluminum.
And that's something I've heard about people shooting aluminum, because with the FMJ arrows coming back in, they're, not coming back in, but FMJ is kind of, they have an aluminum coating around them, right?
I still shoot aluminum arrows. I shoot carbon also. But...
And I'm such a rookie with still with bow hunting. I'm only 4 years into bow hunting, and I don't nerd out on everything and get super into the build outs and everything like that. But what I've heard about FMJs, and they're a great arrow, and they sell great, and they're doing really, really great. And Easton's a sponsor at Huntstock. But the only downside I've heard on it is that because they have aluminum coating, there might be
slight.
People think, at least, like there could be slight variations if you shoot them a lot, right? Obviously, they're going to be great for many times. And I talked to a lot of people about it, and they said, look, you can shoot them 500. Only if you are shooting, if you shoot every single day and you shoot, 100 arrows a day, then, yeah, maybe after a couple of months you might see some variation.
My quiver with my hunting arrows,
yeah,
I don't shoot hundreds of times.
Yeah. No, and I don't, and I think most people don't.
I practice with my, and what I do is my hunting arrows is 2 white veins and the orange knock vein.
Yep.
My target arrows are 2 orange veins and a white knock vein. So that's how I distinguish the practice arrows. And all I do as far as my hunting arrows is I will just do that for my calibrating them as far as which one I want to shoot and how they're flying.
And shoot them maybe once, each of them once before the season, right?
Right.
Like let's get one, make sure they're flying true, and then
sometimes
back in the quiver.
Sometimes I'll do it 2 times. And what I do is I use thunderheads. I love thunderheads, and I'll use practice blades. So I use the same thunderhead broadhead, and I put brand new blades, and I hone them down even from the package. I give them a little for my hunting. Yeah. And the one thing I do like about aluminum ones is I find that I get a little bit more, and I don't shoot a lot of heavy poundage. I'm shooting, 55 pounds hunting. I shoot 60 pounds practicing.
Yeah.
So
same thing with me, because I got a bad shoulder, and I'm shooting 60 pounds pretty much.
Yeah, I'm shooting adrenaline now, Matthews. That's another story. And actually, my 8-pointer that I shot was from my buddy John Driscoll. Passed away, he committed suicide on us, and he had prearranged that I would get all his hunting stuff. So the next opportunity I had, which was Pennsylvania, to go with his bow, which I did. And I shot a nice 8-pointer with it, and thanks, John. And
that kind of stuff always has some kind of a weird effect on. Yeah. But it does. It always seems to, something meaningful gets passed down to you, and then something even more meaningful then happens with it.
Yeah. So to get back to this guy, he wagged his tail and he basically walked away from me and gave me the finger. So I said, I got to get this deer. So, of course, that night I made sure that I hit that scrape again, and I went back into the stand, but instead of going over to the ridge area where I was at, I decided to come and hunt right over the scrape. And he had hit it the night before, but when I got there, he had hit it the night before, so I totally disrupted it, and I went and I set up. And I actually have the whole scenario on a picture thing, and I call it the final results, because I was sitting in that stand and waiting for him to come to his scrape, and I knew he was coming because he was pissed yesterday. So I'm sitting in the stand, and then all of a sudden I turn around to my back, and I see this, which I thought when I first saw him. I thought it was an 8-pointer.
Yeah, well, you just see that.
Yep. And so what happened was, little did I know, there was another scrape over by this clump of trees that was in the middle of the field.
Yep.
I don't think it was the big buck scrape. I think it might have been this guy's or somebody else's that he came to. So when I turned around and saw him, do I want to wait for this guy?
Of course.
But I could get $2 that year.
Yeah.
So I said, you know, this guy here, I think I'm going to take him. Looked like a nice 8-pointer, right?
Of course.
So I shot, and I was a little far back. I knew, you know, it wasn't quite where I wanted it to go.
And it's Massachusetts, right?
Yeah.
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 The great thing about Massachusetts is the 2 buck tags.
Right.
You know, there are other states that even get more, like New Jersey, something nuts, like 6 or 7. But if you can get 2, and you're new to hunting, just to remind people, because a lot of people listening and watching, they're pretty new to hunting, and they're watching and learning a whole bunch of stuff from what you're saying. But just to tie it to it, like, shoot a small one for the first one, especially if you're new to hunting and you're like don't just try to shoot giant, big, mature bucks all the time.
Where it comes
you could
down.
be waiting forever.
Yeah.
Get some kills under your belt.
That's where it comes down with the cameras too. I'm not really a big promoter with the cameras, only because I like using my own visual, sitting in the spot, and if you know this guy is running around, you're gonna try to.
It's gonna change your.
You're gonna try to get this guy.
Yeah.
And myself personally,
that's a good thing for an advanced hunter to be able to pass younger deers because he knows that's around, right? But for a new guy,
I'm a meat hunter.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I'm looking for the meat, and to have a nice 8-pointer next to me.
Of course, you shoot
know,
that.
I'm gonna take him. And like I said, I shot him a little far back. The deer walked off. I mean, he didn't even know he was hit. So it happens. My brother was out at my mother's house, and he had hunted years ago, and he stopped doing it. So I went over to get him, and I said, "Hey Mo, have you ever tracked a deer before?" He goes, "No." I said, "Well, why don't you come with me?" I said, "Because I just shot a nice buck, and we got to go track him." So sure enough, we come back. You know, picked up the blood trail, and it was funny. Because that big buck that I had said the day before that was down below, I'm tracking the blood trail and I'm walking. All of a sudden, right up in front of me is this doe. I mean, not 10 feet in front of me, this doe jumps up. And I'm like, I got a doe tag. But I haven't tagged the other deer yet. So legally, I can't shoot that doe. Because I haven't tagged. You know, because upon shooting deer, the first thing you're supposed to do is tag it.
Yep. So, even if you know it's a buck, and you have a buck and a doe tag, you still can't tag. You couldn't shoot the doe.
No.
Yep.
So, anyway, the doe's there. She walks off, and then that monster buck, he jumps up. Now I'm like, wow. I can fill my both tags right now, you know what I mean? But I still haven't tagged that first deer yet.
Yeah.
So he takes off. So now
Did you have an opportunity to shoot that big one when it jumped up if you would have been unethical? Or did you not have an opportunity anyway?
The doe I could have. I don't think I could have shot the buck.
Yeah.
He was up and out of there too quick. I mean, I wouldn't have had time. If I had a gun in my hand, maybe.
Yeah.
But
I was just wondering.
No, I know.
Yeah. If
I mean,
you went through
me,
that dilemma and it was
when he jumped up in front of me, it was like, holy mackerels. I mean, he was even more impressive than what I saw down below, you know. And so then I come up over the ridge, and sure enough, there's the deer. He's still walking. He's wagging his tail, and like I said, he didn't even know he was hit. So sure enough, we come down, and you could see where he spun around and just lost, you know, ran out of blood, ran out of steam. And that's when I looked down, and I saw this, and I'm saying, "What in the hell was that?" You know, look at. I said to my brother, I said,
cool.
look at that odd rack." And I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at it, and then that's when I saw his leg, and I said, "Son of a bitch, that's the deer I shot last year." Yeah. And I mean, how ironic is that? That you know, you shoot this guy, you break his leg, and then you kill him the next year.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's, to me, that's, you know.
The only other time I've heard, and I know it must happen, and it might be more than one time, but Lanny Benoit told me that he had a story like that too. One year he shot a big buck tracking, and he never was able to find it, and he knew he hit it well, and was never able to find it. And the next year he went back. Oh, that ties back to what we're talking about before. That deer that Lanny shot, and he thought he was great. He followed the blood trail for a little while, and then it petered off, and then the whole year he's thinking about it. He goes back the next year, he gets on a track in that area, And he follows this track about 20 miles, I think, because this deer, what he said was, this deer was so good at evading hunters. Lanny, following this deer's track through that 20-mile, whatever it was, he would see orange blobs up on hills, and he'd wave at guys because the deer they never saw. No, that buck. And Lanny thinks it's partly because he shot him the year before, so he became more wary of an animal. But he went through. He knew how to get around every hunter. He knew exactly where they were all the time, and he avoided all of them. And Lanny was sitting there going, "I'm never going to catch this buck. This one's a smart mother. He's a smart bastard. I'm not going to catch him." And he ended up keep pushing. He ended up getting him, and then to see if it was true. When it went to butchering the deer up, there it was. He popped it out, and it was his 270 round was in that deer's.
He shot it with a rifle.
Yeah, he's a rifle. Lanny's a tracker and a rifle hunter. Okay. Yep. He had a 270 bullet right where he shot him, and it was the same deer. But once they get shot, they
penetrate. It just stuck.
I forget exactly what
stuck in his shoulder.
Yeah, go back and listen to that episode, and that whole thing is told in great detail. But it just
didn't hit any of the vitals.
No.
And I mean that's the thing.
But isn't it funny though? Like when you shoot at a deer like that, they become so much more cautious after. Because imagine, it's like if somebody came after you, say you went to like 7-Eleven somewhere, and somebody like came after you with a knife and stabbed you, and they got a little piece of you, and you're like, oh shit. Every time you're near that 7-Eleven, first of all, you might avoid 7-Elevens altogether after that. And when you're not going to go anywhere near that 7-Eleven, probably, right? And it's the way, like, our behavior is so much like deer behavior as well. You can relate a lot of things. And that's what happens with deer. And sometimes you'll find a deer with multiple different broadheads in it. I think Neil Pendleton, who's one of my good friends, told me that the deer he killed a giant 193-inch just behemoth of a buck in New Hampshire, and I think that buck might not have had any, but hundreds of hunters had shot at him or something, and it was like he was a superhero buck and avoided everything. But it's just funny, man. When deer get pressured.
I remember one time up at the club, one of the members up there, he was shooting Zwickis, Zwicky broadheads.
Yep.
And he was shooting traditional, and he shot this deer. I mean, we tracked that thing for days, and his thing was, I know I got a perfect shot on him. I saw the arrow penetrate him. I saw it go in, blah 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 blah, this and that. And we did. We searched and searched. We never found him. The very next year, one of the other members ended up shooting the deer, and we were butchering it. And we were actually doing it at the club.
Yep.
And in its ass was the Zwicky. So the perfect shot that he swore up and down was stuck in his ass.
Yeah. Was that the entrance or the exit?
No, that was the entrance.
Yeah.
Because it was stuck.
Yeah.
He thought he had hit him in the front, and come to find out he hit him in the back.
Yeah. It was probably quartering away, and he just he was a little off on the left.
Yeah, I don't know how it happened, but definitely happened, because there's this Zwicky, broadhead, and he swore up and down. I said, well, look at there's proof.
Yeah.
That's nobody else is shooting those Zwickys.
That's one of the reasons why I like self-filming now. I've been filming my own hunts, and mostly with my phone, although I have a pretty good camera, but one of the positives of that is you can go back and watch your shot after if you're filming, and you can see exactly where it is and go, oh, that's a liver shot. I better back out and wait.
I had a beautiful Sony camera that I had mounted right to my bow, but it was kind of heavy, and the camera's, kind of extinct now. But that thing there, I got some nice videos of those bucks. But to go back to the story is. There's the deer, with this antler, and come to find out, I shot him the year before, so that was, pretty good, I thought.
It's cool to have history with deer, and then tie the story up. And I told you, there's some history I'm starting to build with some deer that I've got a few deer that I have some history with now. That I think that deer's brother is around, and I'd love to get him. And you know, that's part of the joy of hunting is like building.
Just
Like
being out, just being out there.
I love getting the videos and pictures of them and seeing them. And now there's some deer now that I've had 3 years in a row on camera, which I've never had before. And now that I'm just getting much more into hunting, I know it's the same deer. And for people who are, beginners or whatever, don't have a lot of cameras out, the main thing that I've been able to identify with deer year over year is the brow tines don't seem to change too much. So if you got, like if you want to know if it's the same deer as the year before, just look at the brow tines and study the brow tines. Like that kind of deer with the out curve, that's a sure sign. That deer's the next year is not going to curve in or be straight. His brow tines are going to stay curving like that.
Some of the other tines will start growing longer, and you'll get sometimes you'll get them ones.
Totally, some will split or drop.
They'll hurt themselves when they got the velvet or they get them bugs. The holes in them and stuff.
Yep.
But like you say, it seems like the brow tines, other than maybe where they're fighting and they'll break them off.
Yeah.
But you can see where they're broken off.
Yeah.
As far as growing,
study the brow tines and also study the way the antlers come out of the head. Some deer, like that one, will go straight like that.
Yeah.
And that's an easy sign. Some you'll see come out of the head and like curve below the ears and be curving out like a wide rack that's low. And others will go up and then come out. But that doesn't really change year over year so far. Only in the 3 years I've been really, really studying deer. The way they come out of the head doesn't really change that much, and the brow tines seem to be exactly the same and changing very little. So if you want to identify deer year after year, look at those two things.
Focus on it. And it's the same thing with bow hunting when I'm hunting. That's what I try to do. I try to find that one little clump of hair, in that, and I just focus on that.
Yep.
Most of the time it's right where.
Yeah, that's great shooting advice. Definitely. Look real small.
Yeah. You want to just pick that one little clump and concentrate on it. And generally, I've always had it where I'll see that arrow go right in there, and I'll even see the blood coming out.
Yep.
You want to focus on it.
And it's funny I think the camera just died.
Oh.
Camera just died because it's been on for a long time, but we'll finish it up audio here, and tie it up. But out of all the deer I've killed in the last last 5 or 6 deer, 4 of them I had to reactively guess the yardage. I wasn't able to. You get in your stand and you scope out different yardages. And you got your
focus points.
Yeah, your different waypoints or whatever. Yep.
Tree,
and it's yep. And then something happens differently, and it doesn't work that way. And you have to be good at reactive and guessing the yardages, and that goes back to tying into the 3D shoot. You need to practice that without your rangefinder, because a lot of times you're going to be stuck in a position where it's that's a really nice buck. I know that tree out there is 40. This thing over here is 20, and he's somewhere in there. And you got to be able to just be able to pick up and instinctively figure that out.
And that's why I generally, myself personally, I know guys will split the pins.
Yep.
What I usually try to do is I'll focus on the pin, whether or not it's my 30-yard pin or my 20-yard pin, and then I'll just adjust it by whether or not I bring it up or should I bring it down. Rather than I find if I split the pin, I don't get a good zone in on it. You know what I mean? Where if I pick on the pin, I'll get it right where it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And like you say, I mean the 3D is, and I haven't done many in the last couple of years. I kind of business-wise and stuff, and I practice on my own anyway. But no, the 3Ds are definitely out there for the money and stuff that, and all these clubs, all the work that they do, and, putting out the targets and the cost of the targets, and you definitely want to support any of the local clubs that are putting them on, and they're all trying to, collect some extra money with it and stuff.
Yeah.
and it's good practice. I mean,
Definitely go to your local clubs. And one I want to shout out that I know has put on a really, really good course too. In addition to Nipmuc, which you belong to. Do you still belong to Nipmuc?
No,
But I'm sure they still have an awesome course,
no,
right?
they're not doing
No,
after I
nothing?
left. No,
No?
that's one of the reasons why I left. I mean,
All right.
when they, they stopped doing the 3Ds. When I stepped down as president, I stayed for another year on the board of directors, and things started to change. They wanted to do more of a pistol and skeet and stuff like that, and unfortunately, they didn't have people like myself to continue on the 3D, and unfortunately, a lot of the old timers are resentful of that, I'm sure, because we were known for a good course.
Well, I was going to shout out Uxbridge Rod and Gun Club because my buddy Kevin belongs there, and I've heard so many good things about that from people outside of Kevin, but like that their 3D course is amazing.
Uxbridge, they've always been a good.
Check out all your Rod and Gun clubs.
Sportsman's Club.
Yep.
Singletary, Auburn Sportsman's Club.
Yep.
I mean, there's some really good clubs out there. I mean, I'm sure I'm missing a lot of them, but
yeah,
there's some Maspinock.
Yep. I belonged to Maspinock for a couple of years because not too far, and
they don't do too much with archery anymore, but they're doing a lot with the. But that's the thing. I mean, a lot of the clubs have lost. Well, for one, you don't get the 300, 400 shooters. You're lucky if you get 50, 75. Because it just seems like the archers, I think, are still out there. I don't think they went anywhere. But as far as that fad to do the 3Ds like it was a few years ago, I think has kind of lost some interest.
Yeah, but I think if you that's another thing about Huntstock, like you build a whole bunch of stuff around one weekend, right? Then you're going to have people that want to shoot 3D too, You got to have, as opposed to traveling to somewhere just to go shoot a 3D course. Like it's not like golf as much as, golf. As a former golfer, I want to go shoot new courses all the time. In golf, I want to go and hit a new course. Within hour and a half drive sometimes, if it was really good, you go hit it. I feel like maybe a few years ago it was like that for 3D shooting, but at this point there was a lot of guys.
I mean, there's a lot of names I could come up with, I mean, it's even Brian Visco for one.
Yep.
I mean, he stopped shooting.
Yep.
He went out there, started doing some fishing. I guess he's still doing the fishing.
I love Brian. He loves fishing.
Now I think Chris has talked him back into.
Yeah, he's doing something with Reedies.
Yep. I mean, back when Brian was a tough guy to compete against. I mean, he.
Well, Brian's got that addictive personality where he is going to put everything he can into one thing.
And I think he's scored
at a time
300s on the 3Ds.
Yeah. Which is what every single target is a 12 rank.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Equivalent to a 300 in bowling. Yeah. See, I still didn't even know like that history with stuff and.
Yeah, I mean, there's you got Joe Santo. I mean, there's a lot of good archers out there on the 3D course and I'm sure a lot of them guys are back out there, but not like it used to be. But
Santos.
It is a good.
There's a Santos. What's his name? You said
Joe Santos. There's a Steven Santos. That's his brother also, but Joe Santos.
Are they from Connecticut?
No.
All right. There's a Santos.
Joe lived in Millis last I knew. I don't know where he's at now.
There's a Santos coming to Huntstock. He's Jason Santos.
No.
Yep. He's the only taxidermist that's going to be like, full taxidermist. We've got Euromount taxidermists and stuff that'll be there, but he's the one taxidermist so far committed is Jason Santos, Banded Clovis Taxidermy out of Connecticut. They do a lot of good work. Yep. So I was just wondering if they were the same family, but we should probably wrap it up because the camera ended and a lot of people will probably tune out on YouTube after that. But it was awesome. A lot of fun, man.
Yeah.
What do you think about your first podcast experience?
Definitely wasn't what I thought. But
no, what'd you think it was going to be like?
I don't know. It was you know.
It's a radio show, but it comes out
There's
later.
gonna be a lot of editing going on here.
No, nothing.
No?
No.
No?
It all stays in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's you know, it's definitely an experience. I never really, you know, I don't know, never looked at myself as one to be, you know, I don't know, sprouting my
Everybody.
accomplishments or
Everybody's got something to teach,
no.
man.
I mean, and the thing that I feel is that's important is the fact that, you know, the people that are out there that don't have someone to go to, and that's what you know, I'd be more than happy to help anybody out that's looking, especially up in Vermont, you know, because that's where I'm. Massachusetts is a little tough only because I have private land there that they don't want anybody else on but my brother and the two grandsons, and you know, that's so I can't take anybody to mentor there or anything like that. So, you know.
Yeah, but you know, you can do like people reach out to me and they want to go take a walk somewhere, and like I'm happy to go do that. Like, yo, you want if I have time, and they're like, hey, can you come help me scout this spot? Like, I love doing that kind of stuff.
A lot of guys are a little leery of that, you know, only because of the fact that, and it's even like myself. I'll ask you where that deer is that you. I don't care where it was that you were. I'm just curious as to where you were hunting. That you know you like you're saying some of the deer that you've developed that you saw. And the areas that you're saying that you shot them at, which I know them woods, but I would never go there to hunt. You know?
But there is like it is a very like, and of course everywhere that I'm hunting is public, and everywhere that a lot of people are hunting is public land, so you can go find it. So
just be a little bit more respectful.
When you share, when you're talking with somebody about it, and you actually share like where it is, at that point, if it is public, you have to realize that person put in a lot of work over the years. And if all of a sudden, like, that location gets put out, and even if you just mention it in passing to one person, even though it's completely legal and fine and total, you know, you're not breaking any, you know, it's just like that could really mess somebody up who's put in a lot of effort into a place and countless hours and money and all that stuff into it. And that's where I think, like, because, you know, I know a few people in the last few years who shot really nice bucks, and they tell a few select people, and then somehow always it gets out, and then that place is overloaded with hunters, and that spot is blown up and done. So that's the only reason I preface sometimes.
And 99.9% of the time, I'll bet you the buck ain't there no more.
Yeah, it ain't, but
he realized that everybody and their brother,
in those spots.
When you start getting the pressure like that, they start becoming nocturnal.
Yeah.
And they'll go sleep in somebody's backyard.
Yeah.
They're going to say to you, hey, you know, because they know, they sense it, they smell it. You know, they know the activity that's there that wasn't there before. And
but many of those times, those places that you scouted and that you honed in on for that big one or whatever, and then you get it and then it leaks out. Yeah, even if a bunch of people go in there and that, you know, that buck's not there because you killed it, you know, that spot is still a great spot, but then it's not because it's been just, you know, tramped on by people. And that's all part of it. And people don't have to tell other people where they're hunting or where they have a picture and where they got a deer. But it's just so tempting as hunters. You want to share some of that knowledge, especially with people that you trust and that, you know.
And like you say, as far as somebody needing some help to go do some scouting, I mean, that would be the last thing. If I knew, you know, and went there to help somebody, that'd be the last thing I'd want to do is interfere. I'd want him to be successful.
Yep.
And
I would never, and I would be so excited if I went on a walk with somebody, showed them some things, helped them pick out a stand location, and then they got the giant buck that they were after. I mean, I would feel just as good as seriously as if I killed that buck. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah,
I mean, you know, and especially if you got a novice, somebody that's new, and you know, get them all excited into that, you know. Especially if it was his first buck.
Yeah.
But
all right, let's end it here, Gerry, and we'll probably continue talking after that. But thanks for coming, man.
All right.